Okay, it's 12:35. We better get started so you have as much time as possible.
Yeah.
So my name is Jeff Ingram. I am with Prairie STEM. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. I'd like to welcome you to this session, The Future Belongs to the Creative, with the amazing Andrew Easton. And I had the honor of working with Andrew for a little while in the West Side schools, and he's now moved on to bigger and better things with the ESU Coordinating Council with the state of Nebraska. He's a PBS digital innovator. He has done amazing things with podcasts, digital media forever in his classroom. I've been in awe of him for a long time, and we are so lucky to have him to share with us. So I'm not going to take another second of his time. Go, Andrew. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you to all the grown-ups in the room and all the professionals and all the kiddos that are tuning in and enjoying hopefully a great experience virtually here at the 2021 Nebraska Robotics Expo. And I'm Andrew Easton, just as Jeff said, and I really appreciate the introduction. I'm a dad actually of two great kiddos that go to Rockbrook. So shout out Rockbrook. I see some Rockbrook folks in the room, and also a teacher and educator. And as Jeff said, work for the ESUCC, which means I get to work with schools across Nebraska, which is super fun. I love creativity, and I get to do so much of that every day at my job, and it's just so great. So I love making things, and digitally, Jeff, you're spot on with that. I've, on a regular basis, pretty much on a weekly basis, produce a podcast. We've gotten into Instagram professional development stories, and so doing some graphics and some cool things there. I'm a YouTuber. We do live streams, and I actually just wrapping up the process of writing a book even. And so if it's something that's creative, I want to try it out. I want to experience what it is to kind of work through that. And across all those things, I've learned a lot about the importance of creativity, and I've had a chance to learn from a lot of really great educators too that have stretched my thinking. And it's really left me at a place where I wanted, with this opportunity, to have a chat with folks here at the Nebraska Robotics Expo to talk about how I think the future belongs to the creative. And so I really want to encourage everyone to think that way, especially our kiddos in the room. And to really set why that is, I guess, is where we should probably begin. And then we'll get into, so what? So maybe we should be creative. Then tell me a little bit more about that. And then an actionable kind of what now? What should I do then if I really believe in those first two things? So that's going to be the structure for what we're going to talk about here. And if you all are anything like me and my children, we love YouTube. YouTube's a great place to learn from. And so we're going to have a lot of YouTube videos here. I understand 25 minutes, especially after a day's worth of sessions, can feel a little long. So we're going to watch a bunch of YouTube clips too. And I think that'll just be a great way to keep us engaged and learning from a lot of great minds that exist out there and just reaching out into that digital space. So why would I say this, that the future belongs to the creative? You might be curious. So we're going to get into this. In my job recently, I had a really exciting opportunity to present itself. So I read online that there was an initiative being launched by ISTE, which is the International Society for Technology and Education. It's kind of like the teacher tech nerds from across our country and around the world. Their organization paired with General Motors, and they invested in this artificial intelligence explorations cohort. Whoa, if you're like a little kiddo in the room, you're going, that's a lot. Artificial intelligence, AI, we're talking about robotics here, right? We're talking about machines that can essentially think, which is really crazy and a cool concept to think that we would be able to create machines that could do things similar to what we as humans do. And I was so intrigued by this. I applied to be a part of this cohort, got accepted, and have been learning for the last month or so about this topic. So when Prairie STEM reached out for me to speak, I was like, yes, I would love to geek out and talk about some of these things that I've had a chance to learn. You might be a little bit more familiar with AI that looks something like this, and we know this is just kind of an animated movie, but are these things kind of real, or could it be in our near future see machines that could start to really resemble what we as humans are capable of? And so to give you the definition, just so that we're aware, artificial intelligence is a computer, so let's just think technology, that can perform tasks that are normally only done by we humans. Now, we can break this down a little further, and I'll give you some examples here today of things that these computers could do, that these devices could do. Visual perception is one. They can see. What would it be like for technology to be able to see? They can recognize speech, and you're probably already thinking of maybe a device that you have in your home that's capable of doing this. And some technology today can even make decisions. Those are pretty human-like characteristics and traits, and we're going to explore some fun videos that'll show us what's going on in some of these spaces. So let's start with visual perception. What does it mean for a machine to see? Think about that for a second. And I'm going to give you an example. Recently, I don't know about you, but my daughter, who is 10 years old, loves her phone, and she's fascinated with the latest phones. Some of those that can actually recognize your face and not unlock unless they realize that it's you. So check this out. I'm going to play this video for you, and you can see how this device
iPhone 10
can see.
Your iPhone is locked until you look at it and it recognizes you. Nothing has ever been simpler, more natural, and effortless. We call this Face ID. To make Face ID possible, it took some of the most advanced technology we have ever created. And much of it is packed right up here into this tiny little area at the top of the display. We call this the True Depth camera system. And it is made up of incredible state-of-the-art technology. There's an infrared camera, a flood illuminator, the front side camera, and a dot projector. And that's not all. There's also the proximity sensor, the ambient light sensor, the speaker and microphone, all packed into this True Depth camera system area. It is amazing.
Crazy.
Here's how it works. Every time you glance at your iPhone 10, it detects your face with the flood illuminator, even in the dark. The IR camera takes an IR image. The dot projector projects out over 30,000 invisible IR dots. We use the IR image and the dot pattern, and we push them through neural networks to create a mathematical model of your face. And then we check that mathematical model against the one that we've stored that you set up earlier to see if it's a match and unlock your phone. And this all happens in real time. It all happens invisibly. You don't see
Like that fast. The second you look at it, all that's happening.
You set up Face ID. You just follow the on-screen instructions. It tells you how to move your head around in the camera so Face ID can recognize your face. And that's it. You do that once when you set it up. And Face ID learns your face. Even if you change your hairstyle, you decide to put on glasses, you're wearing a hat, so you do it up any way you do it, Face ID learns your face. It learns who you are. And it adapts to you as your face changes over time. Let's say you start to grow a beard. It works at day, it works at night. And the data for Touch ID has been 1 in 50,000, meaning that the chance that a random person could use their fingerprint to unlock your iPhone has been about 1 in 50,000, and it's been great. So what are the similar statistics for Face ID?
1 in 1 million. Wow. So you've increased the security with that. Wait. So what beyond this then, what can we do? Like I get that maybe you can recognize my face and that's cool. And I might even have a friend who has that particular phone that does that. Here's one more example that I'll share with you.
I'm David Collado. I chose to start
skip
cash
the
card
app.
with Capital One because I earn unlimited 2%
Surprise,
cash
these
back on everything I buy.
apps
Last year,
don't
I
always
redeemed
play.
$21,000 in cash back, which I used for new equipment to expand production.
Well, a little time there for some Capital One commercials. There we go. How about
Hey, it's Andy with the Verge.
self-driving cars?
For a ride in one of Waymo's fully driverless cars here in Phoenix, Arizona. As you can see, there's no driver in the front. I'm not nervous. Are you nervous? I'm not nervous. Here we are, riding in a minivan with nobody in the front seat, with pedestrians and cyclists and other vehicles out on the public road. It's a surreal experience. Google has been working on self-driving cars for over 10 years now. In 2016, Google spun out its project as a separate company called Waymo. And since then, it's been testing hundreds of vehicles here in Arizona, mostly for an Uber-like ride-hailing service called Waymo One. A few years ago, I had the chance to ride in one of Waymo's driverless vehicles, but it was on a private and closed course. And since then, most of the trips that Waymo does in its autonomous vehicles, including the one that we took last year, have trained safety drivers in the front seat. Until now. It says, good morning, Waymo Rider. Our destination is Baby K's Cajun Kitchen. It's asking me to start the ride, so let's do that.
Heading to Baby K's Cajun Kitchen.
What?
All right, so we're pulling out of this parking lot right now.
Pretty crazy. And we're talking about virtual perception or visual perception. Here's what it looks like for this car to be able to do this.
Set of images and driving scenarios. It has a highly detailed, high-def map of the whole area down to the centimeter. It took Waymo a decade to get to this point, where it felt confident enough in the safety of its technology to pull drivers out of the driver's seat. Only for a tightly controlled 50 square mile area, mostly suburban and mostly dry conditions with a pretty basic road layout. And these vehicles aren't totally alone in the wilderness. Waymo has a team of remote employees that watch the real-time feed from each of the vehicle's 8 cameras and can help with the touch of a button if the software runs into a tricky spot and needs a human eye to figure it out. These folks don't joystick the car or anything like that, but they can help answer specific questions that a car might have about an ambiguous situation. And that's where human intuition and human understanding of the entire context is super important. Like, that moving van, is it really staying there or is it about to start driving? Well, if the door's down and they're unloading a lamp out of the back, it's going to be there for a while. That's not something we've gotten around to making the car smart enough to understand. The human sees it in a moment and can send that signal. So it's not really a command to the car, it's just adding information. When you think about
Isn't that crazy to think about, right? So these cars have the technology to be able to see and recognize and make, and as he said there, decisions. And this is the kind of technology, and you can hear it in the way that the humans are describing this technology, that we're using verbs that we would normally assign for human actions. So pretty incredible. Those exist. So do devices or technology where they have the capacity for speech recognition. And you're probably most familiar with this with a device that looks something like this is potentially in your home, right? So if you've ever asked Alexa, I have one in the room, so I was hoping it wasn't going to go off, or that it might. Or if you ever have had to say, hey, Google, and talk to your smart device, isn't it interesting that it can recognize what you're saying? Like, really think about that. I know that we use these devices fairly regularly, but to actually consider the fact that it is able to process that and respond is pretty remarkable. And about 6 years ago, I got a chance to see one of these robots actually in action that does something very, very similar to this. And they've been using this in education for quite some time now. So if you're not familiar with these, these robots
neutral. It doesn't laugh if you make mistakes, and it's always it doesn't get tired of repeating words.
Elias teaches learners how to speak other languages.
Well, maybe there still has to be a teacher to keep kids behaved.
That's probably true. How fun, though, kids, would it be to have a robot as a co-teacher in your classroom? And I don't think we're quite that far away from having that type of technology come around what we're doing in the classrooms. Okay, so technology is getting to a place where it can see, to the point where it can even drive a car. Technology is getting to a place where it can hear you and respond back to you almost as if you're having a conversation. And what another way that technology is sort of evolving through artificial intelligence, AI, as we're going to talk about this, is that now it can even like make decisions or like find information and share that out. And so I'm going to give you a couple of very brief examples of this. One that I think is really fun is this Akinator site, and this has been around for quite some time, but it's really simple, and it's something that you could access at home and just try to trick this actually. And what this is you type into this chatbot, this kind of game, you think of a character, okay? And so I'm going to think of a movie that everyone in here might know. Why don't we go with, I'm going to go with Nemo from Finding Nemo, okay? So we're going to pick a character game. And is your character real? Is Nemo real? No, Nemo's not real. Is your character from Japanese anime? No. Does your character have a human head? No, it's a fish. It's Nemo. Does your character have animal ears? Yes, Nemo's an animal. Is your character a bear? No. Is your character orange? Uh-oh. Yes. Does your character stand on two legs? No. Is your character someone's pet? Not necessarily. Is your character bad? No, Nemo's good. Has your character been king? No. Is your character linked with Winnie the Pooh? No. Is your character's gender female? No. Oh, we're getting to 20 questions here. Is your character associated with politics? No. It did not take this long earlier whenever I tried this. Does your character personally know Elton John? No. Is your character cat-like? No. Does your character walk on four legs? No. I must have answered one of these incorrectly about our friend Nemo. Okay. And what this will do, and obviously it's not perfect. Oh yeah, it does live in water. Yes. I don't know the answer to how many followers Nemo has, so we're going to go back. But what this does is it shows that technology then can listen to us, respond, and start to kind of curate answers. And this is a very simple site that you can go to and kind of try to trick the Akinator here. What I thought was really impressive, and this is an example that's about 10 years old at this point, was when IBM created this Watson artificial intelligence and let them go compete on a game called Jeopardy. And if you're not familiar with Jeopardy, as probably a number of the kids in this room might not be, it's just a trivia show where you have to know a lot of really challenging trivia answers and recall those fairly quickly, because the first person that buzzes in gets a chance to actually earn the point. So we're just going to watch a little bit of this, but this is, again, 10 years ago, where Watson competed against the world's best Jeopardy players to see if the technology could beat the humans.
Going to the lab, and I was thinking, this is it. This is the last Jeopardy game.
This is Jeopardy, the IBM challenge.
Here we go. Brad, if you're ready, make your first choice.
Let's take alternate meanings for 200, Alex.
4-letter word for a vantage point or a belief.
Brad, what is a view?
Yes.
After the first clue of the game, which Brad won, I had just this horrible feeling at that moment that he was as good as everyone said he was, and he was just going to run the whole board on us.
Watson,
What is chin?
you are right.
We actually took the lead. We were ahead of them, but then we started getting some questions wrong.
Watson?
What is leg?
No, I'm sorry, I can't accept that.
What is 1920s?
No.
What is cheek?
No, sorry. Brad,
What is class?
class, you got it. Watson?
What is Sauron?
Sauron is right, and that puts you into a tie for the lead with Brad.
The double Jeopardy round of the first game I thought was phenomenal.
Watson on a tear.
Watson,
Who is Franz Liszt?
you are right.
What is violin?
Good.
Who is the church lady?
Yes. Watson,
What is narcolepsy?
you are right, and with that, you move to $36,681. Watson, now we come to Watson, who is Bram Stoker, and the wager. Hello, 17,973, and a two-day total of 77,000.
Watson won.
Technology like this was years away, but it's here now. I have the bruised ego to prove it. My past Jeopardy experiences have been great, but they weren't really weighty with this kind of technological, philosophical importance. I think we saw something important tonight.
Didn't really think very much about the implications until later and say, wow, wait a second, this is history.
Of course, this whole project is not ultimately about playing Jeopardy. It's about doing research and deep analytics and a natural language understanding. This is about taking the technology and applying it to solve problems people really care about. We're just so excited about all the things we can do with it.
I had thought this is the end. We get there, we're done. And I'm realizing it's just the beginning.
Oh, and that's so true. And that's what I really would want to stress with this, having shown you a number of these videos, is that, like that, for example, was 10 years ago. And so think about how much has changed in the last 10 years since, and how much will change in the 10 years between now and when some of our kiddos that are on here listening to this conversation, how much it will have changed by the time you get out of high school even. And so visual perception, yes. Speech recognition, yes. Decision making, yes. And what's really creative is that people are starting to get to a place where this technology can start to overlap and do multiple things at the same time. We've got one more YouTube video for you coming up here in a second, as we're now starting to see artificial intelligence that can do things like learning, reasoning. There's that visual perception, problem solving, and we went through some of that linguistic intelligence. Okay, this is a really cool example from April, I believe, of this year that was on 60 Minutes. I'll show you a little bit about this, and then we'll kind of move into the next parts of this session.
It's the fact that
I'm going to go back.
60 Minutes Rewind.
Tonight, as the world struggles to contain and recover from the novel coronavirus, we offer a story we completed just before life changed so dramatically. It is a story of history, hope, survival, and resilience, which has its roots in another time when the world was convulsed by crisis, World War II. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the end of that war and the liberation of concentration camps across Europe. Most of the survivors who remain are now in their 80s and 90s. Soon, there will be no one left who experienced the horrors of the Holocaust firsthand, no one to answer questions or bear witness to future generations. But as Leslie Stahl reports, a new and dramatic effort is underway to change that, harnessing the technologies of the present and the future. It keeps alive the ability to talk to and get answers from the past.
This is crazy.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello.
Can I ask you some questions?
You can ask me anything you want, within reason.
Our interview with Holocaust survivor Aaron Elster, who spent 2 years of his childhood hidden in a neighbor's attic, was unlike any interview we have ever done.
Aaron, tell us what your parents did before the war.
They owned and operated a butcher shop.
It wasn't the content of the interview that was so unusual.
Where did you live? I was born in a small town in Poland called Sokow Podlaski.
It's the fact that this interview was with a man who was no longer alive. Aaron Elster died 2 years ago.
What's the weather like today? I'm actually recording. I cannot answer that question.
The survivors were getting very old.
And so what they did was they sat this gentleman down and interviewed him and asked him question after question after question and recorded this to create a bank of responses rich enough that really, for the majority of the questions that you might ask in passing, let's say at a museum, this AI is able to replay those as you ask them. And so you kind of lead a dialogue with someone who is no longer with us. And so, wow, what a creative use of all of the things that we had just talked about that have existed